Day. This is Karen with SSI Consulting, and you have dialed into the year-end processing in Microsoft Dynamics SL. A couple of housekeeping items before I kick it off to Mike McNeese. We are going to be muting the telephone lines during the presentation. So if you have any questions, if you could type them into either the chat or the Q&A box, and we will have those monitored throughout the session. Also, if you're having any technical difficulties, pardon me, please also type those in there, and one of us will reach out to you and see if we can get that working as quickly as possible. So at the end of the session, we'll answer those questions, and if we run a little long, we'll follow up with those people individually and get that taken care of. That being said, I'd like to introduce Mike McNeese, who's one of the partners at SSI Consulting. Mike, the phone is all yours.
Okay, thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. Time for year-end processing. Hot dog, we're having fun now. So I want to launch into this, and we'll take questions at the end. Okay, first of all, the agenda. There's a year-end update file. I'll give you instructions on where to find that sort of thing and whether or not you need to apply it as part of the presentation. But that's something that's downloadable from Microsoft. We'll take a look at what's new in Dynamics SL 2011 and 2015. And then we'll go through the year-end processing for payroll, project controller, accounts receivable, accounts payable, and finally, general ledger. Okay, what's new? In accounts payable, year-end updates include a number of changes. First off, I just want to talk a little bit about the forms and whatnot. So the 1099 miscellaneous form has the following changes. Basically, it's taken out the foreign tax paid issues, which is no longer being used. So that's box 11 and box 12 on the 1099 report. And the form itself does not change. It's just a matter of having those fields disabled or unused. So you may or may not need to apply that change. Filing the 1099 forms, of course, you can do it electronically or on paper. If you are doing electronic 1099s, you absolutely need to install the updates for that because the payer A record changes, and of course the change to the foreign tax paid as well. What's new in payroll? The W-2s themselves, there are no changes required for the W-2 or the W-3. Filing the W-2 forms, you can do that electronically or on paper. If you want to do it on, if you are required to do it on electronic, then you can see the list of changes there. So those you would have to definitely install the year-end update. So as far as applying the year-end updates, the year-end updates are valid for all variations of SL 2011 and SL 2015. They do not apply to any prior version. Okay, if you need to get the year-end updates, you can obtain those on Customer Source. The link is here, and Patrick will be distributing this PowerPoint to you so that you'll have these links available to you, hopefully to answer most of your questions. One thing to mention here is that in the update file, it has different updates to apply depending on whether you're on FL 2011, Service Pack 1, Feature Pack 1, or Service Pack 2, which means that as long as you're on FL 2011, you would not necessarily have to do a Service Pack update or anything like that. You just apply the appropriate one. Okay, the year-end updates include any current year reports, any year-end resolutions, magnetic media changes, particularly the AP 1099 changes. There is also a year-end update for payroll, and there's a separate tax table update. Currently, the July 2014 payroll tax update is the most recent. I expect that there's going to be a tax update as of the end of December that you would also need to apply. If you're going to apply this update yourself, it does require that you have administrative privileges on the servers in order to apply that. Of course, SSI Consulting is more than happy to help you out with installing those. Considerations for year-end. Calendar year and fiscal year. Of course, tax reporting, regardless of whether it's 1099s or W-2s, are done on a calendar year basis, regardless of your fiscal year. We'll go through what that looks like as we go along. You are required to do calendar year-end processing in both payroll and accounts payable, even if you're on a fiscal year. You can post entries to prior period to make adjustments if necessary, even if they are closed. However, that is dependent on some of the security that's set up in the general ledger setup screen as to whether or not you can post to prior periods or not. It might be that you have to temporarily open that up in order to be able to make prior month or year changes. Okay, let's drill in on payroll now. Payroll year-end processing. Okay, the payroll will be closed with the year-end option in general ledger. That's regardless of your fiscal year. New deduction records are created for the next year when you go through that process. So make sure you clear all calculations in payroll before closing the year. If you don't do that, it can cause an error in the following year. So this is the general ledger closing screen. You can see in this example that the client is on a fiscal year, but you're going to do a year closing for payroll regardless of the fiscal year, just like it shows on the screen. Okay, as far as processing goes, on the payroll, first confirm that all of the data for 2014 has been entered and processed. You want to review your payroll batch register to make sure that all batches have been released and posted. The way you do that is by looking at the batch register and looking for statuses that are on hold, release later, unposted, or as an outside possibility, you might have a suspended batch. But all of those things need to be resolved before you do your closing. Next, of course, you would print your period end reports, 941 quarterly tax worksheet, unemployment tax worksheet, and the earnings and deductions report. W-2 payroll steps for the year end. First, you would close the payroll for the year. Apply year-end updates, run calculation on your W-2s, and of course review the data, editing or making corrections if necessary. And then you would print your W-2 forms or run the magnetic media file for upload to Social Security Administration. Calculating W-2s. you would open the W-2 calculation screen, choose the current W-2 year, select the pay groups that you wish to calculate for, and you can do them in groups. If you don't want to do them all at the same time, you can do them in groups, and then, of course, you just begin processing on that. Review the data and the calculations. You can print the W-2 forms to blank paper for review. There are also options in there for using plain paper copy formats, which will print the form boxes around everything to include the calculated figures and verify that information. You can use the employee W-2 history to verify individual employees and make sure that they're correct. Okay, if you need to do corrections, you would determine the cause of the problem. Are the federal wages correct? Identify earnings types that are set up incorrectly, make those changes, identify any missing exceptions, fix the setup so that those are correct, and then recalculate the W-2s to correct. You can run the calculation process as many times as you might need to make sure that everything is correct. If the state wages are incorrect, once again, you need to identify any earnings types that are not correct or missing exemptions, or perhaps too many exemptions, and then use the initialize mode to correct the wages in employee history so that they are correct. There is a part of the security setup for the screen includes the initialize mode. So that's something you might need to do for whoever's working on this so that they have access to the initialize mode to make changes. Tax amounts are incorrect. Determine the cause of the problem and then use initialize mode to get the tax amount to be correct. A couple of important notes. The key to all of this is correct setup. So making sure that your deductions, your tax setup, and everything is correct to avoid problems in the following year. By all means, please be careful when using initialize mode to modify employee history. When you're in initialize mode, you're directly changing those things, so be cautious. Incorrect data. W-2 calculation can be run anytime and run multiple times. Use the employee W-2 history screen to review the results. Issues requiring updates, missing state employer ID. You would look in deduction maintenance W-2 control tab. There'll be a screenshot here in a second. Missing federal employer ID. That's in company maintenance, which is in the administration section of Dynamics SL. It's drawing that information from there. Or incorrect boxes, deductions, and earnings. Those are all things that you would need to check. Some common issues. If you get an error 6960, check date calendar year control cannot be changed in the calculation screen in payroll. You can clear calculations that should resolve this. So usually you get that message because there are pending calculations. You just need to clear those and then rerun the process. If the state wages do not match the federal, there's a knowledge base article available for that. You can just search in customer source on knowledge base article 848521, and this will go through the common issues that you would run. You can just search on that in customer source. W-2 formulas. If you look at knowledge base article 875688, it lists each formula on the W-2 forms. That might help you with figuring out problems. Wages on payroll W-2 forms are not reduced by pension amounts. Again, there's a knowledge base article 87148 to resolve that issue. Another possible problem is that you have incorrect Medicare or Social Security wages on the 941 or on the W-2 forms. And this is addressed in Knowledge Base Article 856266. Just as a quick aside, all these things, of course, are available on Customer Source for you. If you do not have your Customer Source account set up, please reach out to your account manager. That would be either Marion Hartka or Michelle Chesser to help you with getting access to the Customer Source. Okay, W-2 forms. SL does not have a copy 1 or copy 2 report format. You would use the copy D instead. Microsoft Dynamics SL uses a standard 2-part W-2 form. There's also a 4-part or 4-up form in SL 2011 that you can use as well. Printing W-2s. Use the W-2 forms report to print the W-2s. You can obtain pre-printed forms from Deluxe, and there's a link there. So again, we'll be sending you this PowerPoint so that you can go there and get the proper forms. You can also print your own forms using the copy A, B, C, and D formats. There are plain paper formats as options in the Print W-2 screen. So those will actually print the whole form, not just the data. So if you don't want to use pre-printed forms, you can use those. Okay, for those of you that have to use magnetic media, there's a separate screen for doing the magnetic media. In that screen, you will populate the required fields, which includes the calendar year. Of course, you can save that file wherever you want to by just browsing to another location from the default. You have to have, of course, your transmitter PIN that would have been provided by the Social Security Administration, and you fill in the contact information. Company identification fields will default from the company maintenance screen, but you can override it when you print. Sending the file to the Social Security Administration, follow the instructions provided by SSA for W-2 transmittal. You should have received that from Social Security Administration. There's also a program on the federal site that will check your file. So this program is called AccuWage. There's a link there for you to download the AccuWage program. And it'll scan that file and make sure that it's correct and let you know of any issues it might find. Okay, so that's an overview of how to close your payroll. So moving along, we're going to now look at closing the project controller module. The first thing is that in the project controller setup screen, there's a place in there where it says what modules are integrated with project controller. So take a look at that so that you can ensure that you've got all the correct modules integrated there. One of the things you definitely want to do is, before you close, rerun the financial transaction transfer, or FTT, to ensure that everything has been brought over from the other modules into Project Controller. Make sure you process all labor, project charge entries, and allocator batches for the current period. You need to confirm that time cards have been entered and completed if you're using time and expense for projects. Make sure you approve all the time cards, run the labor posting process, make sure that gets to the general ledger. Make sure that all the financial modules are closed so that there's nothing hanging out there that should be in projects before you close projects. You need to print out the unbilled detail report. This is in flexible billings. And compare that to the unbilled AR or WIP accounts in the general ledger. Of course, those two should agree. You need to make sure that you resolve any discrepancy there before you close. Check for any unposted or unallocated transactions by rerunning the allocation process for all projects. And then when all of that is completed, you can close the project controller module. The project system must be closed at the end of each fiscal period. Closing can be fiscal period or year end. Depends on whether you're on a fiscal year or a calendar year. This is done in the close period screen in Project Controller module. This screen does a set of checks before it closes. So it's going to check that all submodules have been posted to projects. It's going to check that the accounting modules are closed to any additional entries, so it won't allow any further changes. All project charge batches are posted. It'll check that, and closing is blocked if any exception is identified. It will give you messages in the screen telling you what problems it might have found. And of course, you would resolve those and then retry the closing process. Time cards are also reviewed, and warning messages will come up in that message section for the number of unposted items being carried forward into the next year. So this is the close period screen. If you're on a calendar year and you're closing December, then you're going to get a year-end close. If you're on a fiscal year, then it'll just be a period close. And this just says the same thing. Okay, prior to actually running the closing process, you should review the project maintenance records for any open projects to make sure things are correct there. Any open projects that should have their balances carried forward would have the balance forward at year-end option selected. My recommendation is that all projects should always have balance forward yes. But if you have projects that occur within a fiscal year, then you don't necessarily have to have that checked, but I always recommend that you do, because we don't know what might happen, right? Things can get carried over. The balance forward determines whether it's the year-end total of a project's budgets and actuals are rolled forward, beginning balance for the coming year during the year-end close process. Projects that span multiple fiscal years absolutely have to have the balance forward selected as yes. For annual projects, maybe not, but again, I recommend that you always have that set. In Project Controller module, you should review the fiscal period maintenance if that's in use to set up the fiscal periods for the new year. So this is a fairly common issue that either the fiscal period maintenance or the week maintenance in time and expense for projects may have only, the current year weeks listed there. So in order to allow time entry in the new year, please take a look at particularly the week ending maintenance to make sure that you have those dates available for the new year so you don't have any problems with time entry. Okay, that's it for the project controller. I'm going to move on now to the accounts receivable. As with all modules, you want to review any open accounts receivable batches. You're looking for batches that are on hold or in release later. That's a B status, but it's released later, or unposted, or hopefully not a suspended batch. But please do take a look at the accounts receivable batch register and look for any batches that have any of those four statuses. You want to post those transactions in the GL, of course. You should print the customer period trial balance and also the GL trial balance and reconcile, right? Those should be the same, just like with any month-end process, any month-end closing process. You can use the GL transactions report with the unposted option to look at things that are in future periods. You also should take a look at the accounts receivable account distribution report or the AR transactions to review that data. You should run the aged accounts receivable detail process to make sure that the buckets are correct. Also, you want to print the aged AR report to confirm that those aging buckets are correct. And then finally, close the accounts receivable module. Up next, accounts payable. Okay, so similar to accounts receivable, you want to review open accounts payable batches, looking again for hold, balance, unposted, or suspended batches. Best way to do that is with the AP batch register and resolve any of those. It's a good time at the end of the year to take a look at all of those and clean up anything that's been hanging out there from the year that's on hold. Delete those batches if they're unneeded or complete them if they are needed. And then, of course, you want to post transactions from accounts payable in the general ledger module. You should print the vendor period trial balance and the period sensitive aged accounts payable. I'm sorry, there's a typo there. It says aged AR. So those two reports should agree with one another, and they should also agree to your accounts payable control account in the general ledger. You should confirm that any recurring entries have been generated and released and posted. You should, of course, print a check register and an aged accounts payable report, and then you can close the year. In addition to that, for 1099s, we need to also make sure that our 1099 calendar year control is correct. Some further comments about the 1099 calendar year control. The calendar year control, what typically you would have right now, have things set so that you have 2 years open, and it can only be 2 years open. Right now, most likely yours is set so that you have 2013 open and 2014 listed as the next year, which you would have had to do at the beginning of 2014 so that you could go through this process then. Ultimately, you're going to want to run the 1099 calendar year control to purge the oldest year, which would then leave you with 2014 as the current year and 2015 as the next year. You must do that. You must have 2015 open before you'll be able to run any checks for 2015. The 1099 preview report will contain all vendors, whether they are subject to 1099 or not, but it's intended to be all-inclusive. However, when you print the 1099 forms, it will only print the ones that hit the $600 limit and would not include any other vendors. Of course, the 1099 information is updated throughout the year. There's no extra process required to print. You only need to run a process if generating the magnetic media for sending to the IRS. In accounts payable, you can go to the report section and click the 1099 forms report. You can also to use to review, or you can also use the preview report or print the 1099s on plain paper. The 1099 preview shows all vendors. One other thing to note here is that there is a custom 1099 report that you can use instead of the standard one, And if you would like to use that, there's a knowledge base article out there on Customer Source 936577 that you may want to take a look at and use. Okay, as I said, 2 years can be open at any given time. Typically, you'd have the prior year open and the current year open. For this year, that would mean that the current year, after you purge the oldest year, the current year would be 2014, and the next year would be 2015. That means you're ready for running accounts payable checks in 2015. It also allows you to void checks in 2014 from a prior year if that situation comes up. If it's set this way, then printing the 1099s for 2014 would be the default. If it's not set this way, if it still says 2013 and 2014 as the next year, you can always change that at report printing time for the 1099s. That would look at the next year instead. And there's a screenshot of that. So when you go to the 1099 forms report, you can go to the Options tab and click Next 1099 Year. I certainly recommend that you purge the oldest year and have your current year be 2014 and your next year be 2015. So here's what that calendar year control looks like. This is the way it would typically be right now before you have run the purge oldest year. On that process option, if you click on that combo box there, you'll see that the purge oldest year is available there. Do be careful and don't run this twice. If you do, it could end up in the situation where it's not easily correctable, and there's a SQL script that would have to be run to set it back. There's a slight hesitation when you hit begin processing, so don't make the mistake of thinking it's not doing anything and hit it again. Like to avoid having to do that, but if you do, let us know. There's a way to fix that. Okay, after you review the 1099 information, if you find that there is an error, the most common thing is that you've got a vendor for whom some vouchers are subject to 1099 and some are not. And data entry could have defaulted, and you end up with something in there that you should not have. Once again, you would need initialize mode access rights into the vendor maintenance screen. And then with that right, you can open up the vendor maintenance screen, look at the 1099 info tab for that particular vendor, and you can see that the numbers in that down in the boxes there are black. They're not gray, meaning that they are editable when you're in initialize mode. So you would determine what the problems are, make the changes in this screen, and then you'll get the correct 1099s. Once again, please be careful with initialize mode. You need to make sure that this is correct when you do it. Okay, if you are reporting your 1099s on magnetic media, there's a separate screen for that called Generate 1099 Electronic File. You can generate those for either of the 2 years that are open. Some fields are required for the PIN and the contact information. Again, you have gotten this from the IRS, and you would fill that information in. So here's the transmitter tab where you would put in the control code. Of course, it's got to have your PIN number accurate in there. It's going to draw this information from the company maintenance, but you can override it here if you want to have it be a little bit different, for contact if there's a problem with it. Okay, common issues we see with 1099s. You might get system message 532. That would be a case where you did not purge the oldest year and you did not have 2015 available for doing things. Again, you would just go in and close the 1099 year by purging the oldest year, and then that message would no longer come up. If 1099 balances are incorrect for a vendor, that's where you use the initialize mode to go in and make any necessary changes. You can also use the integrity check, although that's usually not necessary. If the current 1099 year was purged by mistake, once again, there's a SQL script that has to be run to update the periods and years. Try and avoid that, but if something happens, let us know and we'll help you out with that. Okay, next up, closing the general ledger. So this is the last module that you'll close for the year. Of course, it's typical that the general ledger will follow with the others, maybe not be closed immediately at the end of the year. That's okay. It's just that you won't be able to post to the new year until you do close. Remember that you can post to a prior year, so it's really okay to close the year in the general ledger as long as you have the right set in your general ledger setup screen to allow you to post to prior years or prior periods. Once again, you would select the year option in the general ledger closing. Okay, you can, as I said, you can post back to prior periods. Make sure you print your GL transactions unposted option or unposted format. And the GL batch register, again, you're looking for those hold, release later, unposted or suspended status batches so that you can resolve all of those. Make sure that you have cleaned up all the old batches that might be in any of those statuses and resolve them, either delete them, complete them, and process them. Make sure if you're using general ledger allocations that you have released all those allocation batches. And of course, you want to review your general ledger trial balance or detailed general ledger reports. One of the things you certainly want to check is to, on your trial balance report, make sure that your assets equal your liabilities. Also, you want to look at your net income at the very end of the trial balance report, and that should tie back to your retained earnings and year-to-date net income, excuse me, not retained earnings. It would be your year-to-date net income account or all sub-accounts added together. That should, of course, tie back to the bottom line on the trial balance. You want to also take a look at your financial reports, whether you're using FRX or Management Reporter or even BI 360, to make sure that they tie back to the general ledger trial balance. Okay, when you close the general ledger, of course, it's going to close year-to-date net income to retained earnings. And then after you do that, at that moment, the year-to-date net income would be 0. Of course, it's going to pull your ending balances into your beginning balances for the new year for assets and liabilities. And of course, you'll have 0 for all your income and expense accounts. Make a final review of current and next year trial balance report as well. Well, that's an overview of the closing process for Dynamics SL. I'd like to see if there's any questions. Karen or Patrick, can you open up the phones for us?
Yes, Mike, it's Patrick, and I will go ahead and unmute everybody right now. There was one quick question that came in earlier as I do this. They were just asking to review 1099s again. You may have gone over that, but if there's anything, kind of important to 1099s, if you want to discuss that real quick while I unmute everybody. And again, everybody that doesn't, if you have not entered your audio pin, I will not be able to unmute you so you can ask the question, I will send you your audio pin again. And again, back to you, Mike.
Hey, Mike,
okay.
can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's up?
Hi, yeah, that question was, this is Bertram from NGK Law. That question was earlier because we logged in about a minute after you started, but I think you covered the 1099 presentation, so you don't have to redo that again.
Okay. All right.
But we had a question related to it is we get the forms from the IRS, and when I ordered them, they said that those forms do not print on laser printers. Do you know anything about that? Or
You know, I don't. You know, when I started preparing for this about a week ago, I actually sent in a request for some sample forms, and I haven't received them yet. So it says that they're not laser? They're not?
No, I've got the forms from last year, which we did manually. I mean, not through Solomon, but they are, they're this form on top and down. There are two forms, two 1099s on a letterhead page, and the first copy is for the IRS, the second copy is for the state, the third copy is for the recipient, and then there's a fourth copy for the payer. So these are like carbon copies. So when you if you put it on a typewriter or something like that, the copies behind get, it's like self-carbon. So they said that this will not work on a laser printer when I ordered it this year.
I got you. I didn't know that. Thanks for that information.
Well, the only thing I can think of is to undo those pages from, the tab on the left, just detach it and then individually put it through the printer. It might work that way, I'm thinking.
Well, that's a possibility, but you might want to consider going to Deluxe and just getting the correct forms for laser also.
Yeah.
It'd certainly be my recommendation that you get the Deluxe forms, and you're not going to have any problems with those.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I saw another question that came in for you. It's regarding a 1099 as well, but the question is, do I need to update with any service tax for 1099? If not, paying for international payment, as you mentioned on one of the slides.
So the
I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody again, just so that way we can get rid of the feedback, and then let you answer that question. Okay?
Yep. Give me that question again, because I was having a hard time hearing it.
Sure. Let me go ahead and do the muting, and then I'll repeat the question. And we actually had another question come in as well, so I'll read you the questions here in just a second. Okay, Mike, can you hear me? Mike, are you able to hear me? Mike, can you hear me now? Looks like we're having a slight audio issue. If you guys can give us just a second, we'll get this worked out. Mike, are you back with us? It looks like his phone cut out. Apologize for the delay. We will make sure to get this started right back up and get everybody's question answered. Mike, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I believe what happened was the audio pin issue there. So again, everybody, I apologize, but we did have a few more questions that came in, Mike, and I will we'll go ahead and start off with those if you'd like. And the first question we left off with was the question was, do I need to update any service pack for 1099 if I'm not paying for international payment, as you had talked about in one of the earlier slides?
The answer is, strictly speaking, no. You should be able to print your 1099s on the forms because the forms themselves have not changed. So you wouldn't necessarily have to do that. However, the installing the update does disable those fields so that you don't accidentally get something in there. And so I would still suggest that you do it, but you don't, strictly speaking, have to.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. The next question was, why does Solomon not allow for printing the 1096 form?
Actually, it does. The technique that you use, great question, by the way. The 1096 form is, in fact, identical to the 1099 form, except that, of course, it has totals in it. So the way you go about that is to count the forms. So if you've got 12 vendors that you're going to print 1099s for, you would count out 12 forms and then put the 1096 form at the end of it, and it will print the 1096 on that last form, and you'll have what you need.
Great. Thank you, Mike. The next question is, looking forward to receiving the webinar. So far. I can review it with my CFO. Excuse me, that was actually just a comment about the webinar. A good comment, I must say. That was from a colleague of ours. The next question is, will attorney fees automatically print box 14?
Not necessarily automatically. So when the voucher for that was entered, you would have to select the correct box. So provided that you have selected the correct box when the voucher was entered, then yes, it will print it on the correct box. But that's a choice that you would have made when you vouched it.
Well, thank you, Mike. That's all the questions that I have that were typed in right now. Is there any is that the final slide, or if you want to continue along, and then we can open questions up again?
Nope. There's. I'm just at the question slide.
Okay. If anybody has any questions, you can again type them into the questions box. I will go ahead and try and unmute everybody again, and we'll see if anybody has any questions that way as well. And again, thank you everybody for joining today's webinar. Also, today's presentation will be posted on our website and downloadable from our website. And what I will be doing is sending everybody the link to that page so that that way everybody can download the presentation. It'll also include Mike and your account manager, so that way you can get a hold of anybody if you have any questions at all. Everybody that entered their audio pin is unmuted, so please, if you have any questions for Mike, please let's go ahead. Well, Mike, I think you did a great job. It seems like everybody, you did such a good job. Everybody's questions were answered before they even had them.
Well, if anybody has any further issues, of course, you can certainly reach out to your project manager or your lead consultant to assist as well.
Feedback. Let me just Mike do this again. Okay, Mike, that should get rid of the feedback if you want to continue.
I'm sorry, Patrick, was there another question?
No, I was just what happens is with the feedback, but you know, again, what you were saying about contacting anybody. See there.
Oh, well, so if you do have any issues, if you need to get connected to customer source, you should reach out to your account manager, Marion Hartka or Michelle Chesser. If you need assistance with correcting any problems, in the data or anything, or you run into anything that wasn't covered here, you can reach out to your project manager or your lead consultant, and they will help. I don't have anything further, Patrick.
Okay, Mike. Well, again, thank you for doing this year-end webinar with us. I think it's been a good 2014, and like I was saying, we will be getting the presentation uploaded, and we'll make sure everybody receives the link to do the download. And we'll go ahead and wrap things up here and let everybody get a few minutes back in their day. Again, thank you, Mike. And, I'll leave the line open just a little bit longer in case any questions come in, Mike, and then I will pass them along to you via email and include the person that asked.
Okay, very good. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you very much, Mike, and you have a great day. And everybody that attended, you also have a great day, and I hope you have a great holiday as well. And if you do have any questions, you can go ahead and write them in your questions box, and I will make sure that they get passed along to Mike and make sure any questions, anything that you would like to ask him about reaches him, and we get everything worked out.